The secure phone hadn't rung in 8 years. Colonel Marcus "Ghost" Reeves was feeding his chickens in rural Montana when the Pentagon called with 4 words that changed everything. "We need you back." But when he saw the hostage photo, his blood ran cold. The man they wanted him to save was the same bastard who'd sold out his entire team in Afghanistan. Welcome to the Human Stories. Before we dive into this intense tale of betrayal, duty, and the impossible choice between mission and justice, tell me in the comments, from which city are you watching today? And if you believe stories of moral complexity like this deserve to be told, hit that subscribe button. Sometimes the hardest battles are fought within ourselves. 8 years of silence. 8 years of sunrise coffee on the porch, fixing fence posts, and pretending the nightmares had stopped. Colonel Marcus "Ghost" Reeves had earned his retirement the hard way. 30 years of operations that officially never happened, in places that didn't exist on any map. The secure satellite phone was buried in his gun safe, under papers he'd hoped never to touch again. When it buzzed at 0600 hours on a Tuesday morning in October, Reeves almost ignored it. Almost. "Reeves? Ghost, this is Director Harrison, CIA. We need to talk." "I'm retired, sir. Have been for 8 years. "Not today, you're not. There's a Black Hawk inbound to your location. Be ready in 30. The line went dead. Reeves stared at the device, then looked out at his 30 acres of Montana wilderness. His chickens pecked at the ground, oblivious to the fact that their caretaker's world had just tilted off its axis. 28 minutes later, the rhythmic thump of rotor blades echoed off the mountains. CIA headquarters, Langley, Virginia. The briefing room was sterile, windowless, designed to contain secrets that could topple governments. Director Harrison looked older than his 60 years, gray stubble and tired eyes that had seen too much classified horror. "Iran has captured someone of extreme value," Harrison began, sliding a manila folder across the table. "Deep cover operative, 20 years in the field. His extraction is politically sensitive." Reeves opened the folder. The photograph hit him like a sniper's bullet to the chest. Agent David "Prophet" Kane. The same boyish face that had aged into something harder, scarred by 2 decades of living lies. The same man who'd sat across from Reeves in a Kandahar briefing room in 2004, going over infiltration routes and extraction points. The same man who'd sold those routes to the Taliban for 30 pieces of silver and the promise of safe passage out of Afghanistan. "You've got to be kidding me," Reeves whispered. "Problem, Colonel?" Reeves closed the folder, his jaw set like concrete. "When do I leave?" "Afghanistan, 2004. The operation was supposed to be surgical. Insert at 0200, neutralize high-value target, extract before dawn. 12 of Delta Force's finest, led by then-Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Reeves. The intel came from Prophet, their CIA liaison, who'd been embedded with Taliban leadership for 18 months. "Route Charlie is clean," Prophet had assured them. "No patrols, no IEDs. Straight shot to the compound." They trusted him. In the special operations community, trust wasn't given lightly. It was earned through blood, sweat, and shared danger. Prophet had earned it. The ambush came at 0347 hours. 40 Taliban fighters positioned perfectly along Route Charlie, waiting like hunters in a trap. The intelligence had been too good, too clean, too perfect. Reeves lost 12 men that night, 12 warriors who'd followed him into hell because they believed in the mission, believed in the intel, believed in Prophet. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez, who had twin daughters back in Texas. Corporal Jenkins, who was planning to propose to his girlfriend when he got home. Captain Morrison, who'd saved Reeves's life in Somalia. All dead. All because Prophet had sold them out. Present day. "You knew," Reeves said, staring Harrison down across the briefing table. "You knew about Kandahar." Harrison's expression didn't change. "I knew you'd want answers." "Answers? 12 of my men are dead because of that piece of shit. And now you want me to risk my life to save his? Prophet didn't betray your team, Ghost. The words hung in the air like smoke from a discharged weapon. Reeves felt something crack inside his chest. Bullshit. The intelligence was compromised. Only he had access to. The intelligence was fed to him by us, Harrison interrupted. Prophet was never the mole. He was the bait. Reeves stood slowly, his hands shaking with barely controlled rage. Explain, now. We knew there was a leak in the operation. Someone with high-level access was feeding information to the Taliban. We fed Prophet false intel to flush out the real traitor. And my men. Harrison's voice was barely above a whisper. Acceptable losses. The conference room door opened, and another figure entered. Reeves recognized him immediately. General Robert Sterling, now chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. 20 years ago, he'd been the operations commander for their sector in Afghanistan. Hello, Marcus. Reeves's world tilted again. The pieces fell into place like dominoes in his mind. Sterling had access to all operational intel. Sterling had approved the mission parameters. Sterling had insisted on using Prophet's intelligence, despite reservations from field commanders. You son of a bitch, Reeves breathed. It was you! Sterling nodded slowly. The Taliban were paying extremely well for American operational intelligence. I had gambling debts, alimony payments, a lifestyle to maintain. It was supposed to be low-level stuff, patrol routes, supply convoys, nothing that would get anyone killed. But it escalated. It always escalates, Marcus. When the Taliban started demanding more sensitive intelligence, I had to deliver or they'd expose me. Your team was unfortunate collateral damage. Reeves lunged across the table, but 2 security guards restrained him before he could reach Sterling's throat. Why? Reeves shouted. Why tell me this now? Harrison answered instead of Sterling. Because Prophet has been undercover for 20 years, taking the blame for Sterling's betrayal. He's been feeding us intelligence on Iranian nuclear programs, Revolutionary Guard movements, political dissidents. His cover is blown, and he's being held in Evin prison, scheduled for execution in 72 hours. Let him die, Reeves said coldly. He should have come forward 20 years ago. He couldn't, Sterling interjected. I threatened to expose him as the real traitor if he talked. I had enough fabricated evidence to sell the story. Prophet chose to protect his family and serve his country in silence. His family? Harrison slid another photograph across the table. A woman and 2 children, maybe 8 and 10 years old. His wife and kids. They think he's a traveling salesman. If Prophet is executed in Iran, if his cover story falls apart, Sterling's frame job becomes public record. Prophet's family becomes targets for revenge from families of the soldiers who died. Reeves stared at the photo. Innocent faces, unaware that their father had spent 20 years carrying the weight of a betrayal he didn't commit. So I save the man I've hated for 20 years, or I let an innocent family suffer for Sterling's crimes. That's about the size of it, Harrison confirmed. 48 hours later, Reeves found himself in a CIA safehouse outside Istanbul, Turkey. The mission parameters were insane, even by special operations standards. Infiltrate Tehran, breach Evin prison, extract 1 prisoner, exfiltrate through hostile territory, with no official support. If he was captured, the U.S. government would deny any knowledge of the operation. His equipment was minimal: civilian clothes, forged Iranian identification, a suppressed .22 pistol, and a communication device the size of a contact lens. No backup, no extraction team, no cavalry coming over the hill. Just Ghost, alone again, like so many times before. The intelligence package contained Prophet's exact location within the prison, guard rotations, structural layouts, and a narrow 30-minute window during shift change when security would be lightest. Tehran, Iran. The city sprawled like a concrete cancer across the valley. 8 million people living under the watchful eye of a theocratic regime that disappeared dissidents in the night. Evin prison squatted on the northern edge of the city like a concrete monument to oppression. Reeves had been in Iran for 6 hours, moving through the city with papers identifying him as a German engineer consulting on a water treatment facility. His Farsi was passable, his documentation flawless, his cover story rehearsed to the point of automatic response. But 30 years of operations had taught him that perfect plans survived exactly until first contact with reality. The prison complex was larger than the intelligence photos had suggested. Guard towers, electrified fencing, multiple checkpoints, and roving patrols with attack dogs. It wasn't just a prison, it was a fortress designed to keep the worst enemies of the Iranian state locked away forever. Prophet was being held in Section 209, the political prisoners' wing, the most secure area of the most secure prison in Iran. Reeves checked his watch, 2300 hours. The guard shift change occurred at midnight. He had exactly 1 hour to breach the perimeter, navigate 6 levels of security, reach Prophet's cell, and begin exfiltration. Just another day at the office for a ghost. Reeves memorized every detail, then burned the files. Some knowledge was too dangerous to leave lying around. As he prepared to board the civilian transport to Tehran, one thought kept cycling through his mind. Was saving Prophet justice for the wrong he'd suffered, or justice for the wrong Sterling had committed? The first challenge was the outer perimeter. 20-foot concrete walls topped with razor wire and electronic sensors. But Reeves had studied the construction photos. The wall's foundation followed the natural slope of the hillside, creating a blind spot where the tower guard's sightlines didn't overlap. He scaled the wall using climbing gear that would disappear into his civilian clothes if discovered. The sensors were motion-activated, but they were calibrated for larger movements, someone running, not someone moving with the deliberate slowness of a professional infiltrator. Inside the compound, Reeves became a shadow among shadows. Guard patrols followed predictable patterns, their routes optimized for efficiency rather than security. Bureaucratic thinking in a place where paranoia should have ruled. Section 209 was a fortress within the fortress. Biometric scanners, reinforced doors, guards with automatic weapons at every checkpoint. But every system had weaknesses, and every guard had human limitations. The shift change began at 23:59 hours. For exactly 4 minutes, as outgoing guards briefed incoming guards, the electronic surveillance focused on checkpoint protocols rather than corridor monitoring. Reeves moved like smoke through corridors that smelled of disinfectant and despair, following memorized routes to cell 437. Prophet looked like hell. 20 years of deep cover had carved lines into his face that made him appear 60 instead of 50. His beard was streaked with gray, his eyes hollow with the knowledge of secrets that could topple governments. "Marcus?" Prophet's voice was barely a whisper. "Yeah, it's me." Reeves picked the lock on the cell door, his fingers working with muscle memory from countless operations. "We need to move, now." "You came for me." Prophet struggled to stand, his legs weak from months of interrogation and poor nutrition. "I came for your family," Reeves corrected. "Your wife and kids don't deserve to pay for Sterling's sins." Prophet nodded, understanding. "You know the truth now." "I know enough." Reeves helped Prophet to his feet. "Can you move?" "I'll manage." They made it 3 corridors before the alarm sounded.
Prison alarms are designed to disorient, to create panic, to flood the system with enough noise and confusion that thinking becomes impossible. But Reeves had trained for this. Moving through chaos was what ghosts did best. The exfiltration route took them through the prison's maintenance levels, following steam pipes and electrical conduits that civilian contractors had mapped decades earlier. Prophet moved better than expected, adrenaline and desperation overriding physical weakness. "Why didn't you tell me?" Reeves asked as they navigated a narrow maintenance tunnel. 20 years I thought you were the traitor." "Sterling had evidence," Prophet gasped. "Forged documents, fabricated communications. If I'd talked, he would have destroyed my reputation and my family. At least this way I could keep serving." Serving by taking the blame for dead soldiers? Serving by preventing more soldiers from dying. The intelligence I've gathered over 20 years has saved thousands of American lives. They reached the outer wall as searchlights began sweeping the compound. Guard dogs barked in the distance, their handlers shouting orders in Farsi. The prison was waking up, transforming from a fortress into a trap. Reeves rigged a makeshift rappelling line from the maintenance tunnel to the outer wall. It would hold their weight. Barely. "Can you climb?" Prophet nodded, though his hands shook as he gripped the rope. The extraction point was an abandoned warehouse 6 kilometers from the prison. Prophet's strength failed twice during the journey through Tehran's industrial district, forcing Reeves to half-carry a man who'd spent 20 years carrying secrets that weren't his to bear. The safe house was Spartan: medical supplies, clean clothes, encrypted communication equipment, and 2 airline tickets to destinations that didn't appear on any official flight manifests. As Reeves tended to Prophet's injuries, the weight of 20 years began to settle between them. "I never stopped hating you," Reeves admitted, "even after Harrison told me the truth." "I understand," Prophet replied. "Hate was easier than the alternative." "What alternative?" "Accepting that sometimes good men have to carry other people's sins, that sometimes justice isn't about punishment, it's about protecting the innocent." Reeves looked at the photo of Prophet's family still tucked in his jacket pocket. 2 kids who thought their father traveled for business, unaware that he'd spent 2 decades in hell to keep them safe. Sterling? He'll face military tribunal. Eventually, but the evidence will be classified, the trial sealed. The families of your 12 men will never know the truth. The CIA extraction plane was a civilian charter, its flight plan indicating a routine business trip to Germany. As Iran disappeared beneath the clouds, Prophet slept for the first time in months, his breathing steady for the first time in years. Reeves stared out the window, thinking about justice and duty, about the difference between revenge and righteousness. 12 good men had died because of Sterling's greed, but letting Prophet die wouldn't bring them back. It would only add another name to the list of Sterling's victims. "Colonel." The CIA operative approached quietly. "Director Harrison wants to debrief you when we land. Tell Harrison I'm done, permanently this time." "Sir, there might be other operations." "There are always other operations," Reeves interrupted. "Someone else can carry them." He'd spent 30 years as a ghost, moving through shadows to protect people who would never know his name. But some ghosts earned the right to rest, and some debts were paid not through vengeance, but through mercy. Prophet would return to his family with a cover story about a business trip gone wrong. His children would never know their father was a hero who'd sacrificed everything to serve his country. His wife would never know she'd married a man who'd carried another man's sins for 20 years. Montana looked exactly the same as when Reeves had left it: endless sky, rolling hills, and a silence that didn't require explanations. His chickens greeted him with the indifference of creatures who understood that some things were more important than feeding schedules. The secure phone sat on his kitchen table, its red light blinking with messages he wouldn't return. The CIA would call again, eventually. There were always more crises, more impossible missions, more situations that required a ghost's touch. But Reeves had learned something in an Iranian prison that 30 years of operations couldn't teach him. Sometimes the hardest mission wasn't infiltrating enemy territory or extracting high-value targets. Sometimes the hardest mission was learning when to let go of hate. He buried the phone in his gun safe, under papers he hoped never to touch again. Outside, the Montana sky stretched endlessly in all directions, and for the first time in 20 years, Marcus "Ghost" Reeves felt free. 6 months later, he received a letter with no return address. Inside were 2 school photographs, a boy and a girl, maybe 9 and 11 now, smiling with the innocence of children who believed their father sold insurance for a living. On the back, in Prophet's handwriting, "Thank you for bringing me home." General Robert Sterling received a dishonorable discharge and 20 years in military prison. The trial was classified, the evidence sealed, the verdict buried in files that would remain secret for 50 years. The families of the 12 soldiers who died in Kandahar received benefits increases and official letters expressing the nation's gratitude for their sacrifice. They never learned the truth about Sterling's betrayal, never discovered that their loved ones had died for 30 pieces of silver and a gambling addiction. Prophet disappeared into a new identity, his 20 years of service condensed into a single line in a classified personnel file. Exemplary service under extremely difficult circumstances. His children grew up believing their father had worked in international sales, never knowing he'd helped prevent a nuclear program, stopped terrorist attacks, and saved countless American lives. Marcus "Ghost" Reeves returned to his chickens and his silence, carrying one final secret to add to his collection. Some stories were too dangerous to tell, some truths too painful to share. But on quiet Montana mornings, when the coffee was strong and the sunrise painted the mountains gold, he sometimes allowed himself to believe that justice wasn't always about punishment. Sometimes it was about choosing mercy over vengeance, duty over hatred, protecting the innocent over satisfying the need for revenge. The secure phone never rang again. So I ask you, when duty conflicts with justice, when the right choice seems wrong, what would you do? Have you ever had to choose between what you wanted and what was right? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story of moral complexity and difficult choices moved you, hit that subscribe button. Because here at The Human Stories, we believe that the most powerful stories aren't about heroes and villains. They're about human beings facing impossible decisions and finding the courage to do what's right, even when it costs everything. Until next time, remember sometimes the heaviest burdens are carried by those who choose to carry them in silence.